Hey y'all, welcome back to Sarah Grace Cookie Co. I'm Sarah Grace from sarahgracecookie.com. That is my blog, website, channel where I share all things sugar cookie decorating, baking, business, all that good stuff. So today we're going to be making a sugar cookie icing recipe. Now, if you've been in the cookie game for very long, you know that sugar cookie icing is also known as royal icing. It's an icing made with meringue powder, powdered sugar, and water, and it's this thick icing that dries with a hard crust, and we mix it to different consistencies after it's been made to create those flowy icing videos where we do the outline and then the flood on the inside. So today I'm going to take you through how I make my royal icing and a few tips for how to get the best results with the royal icing you're making. Now, you may have seen my other video, royal icing with meringue powder. You can make royal icing with egg whites, but it's a bit more messy, it's a bit more complex, so meringue powder makes royal icing much more shelf-stable and gives you a much more reliable recipe. Now, the recipe I'm using today, I'm going to be making in my KitchenAid stand mixer. And you absolutely can use a hand mixer if you have to. I'm going to be like Ina Garten. If you don't have precious vanilla beans from Madagascar, you can use store-bought. But I will tell you that the best results for cookie icing are going to come from having a stand mixer like this one. I love my KitchenAid. I've used my KitchenAid for my cookie baking, for all the other things in my kitchen for years, and I absolutely adore it. And I fully believe that this mixer and the paddle attachment that I use on it is 100% the reason I've been able to get the consistent results that I have with royal icing over the years. And to get that beautiful, fluffy royal icing that I can use to make gorgeous flower decorated sugar cookies or the smooth porcelain looking cookies, whatever it is. So if you'd like to look into getting a KitchenAid, I have a link for you down below. Now, I do give you affiliate links. I make a little kickback from that helps me keep making videos for you like this, but it's no additional cost to you. And anytime I find a deal or learn that there's some kind of sale or help getting a KitchenAid mixer at a more affordable price, I will absolutely share that with you. So make sure that you're on my email list at sarahgracecookie.com. You can go download my consistency class or any of that stuff to get on that email list. And I'll put that link, all that down below. But let's get started with this royal icing. Just know you can use a hand mixer, but a KitchenAid is definitely going to give you the best results. So definitely look into the KitchenAid. You can also, on the topic of KitchenAids, you can buy an older model that is a little bit less expensive than the newer ones. The newer ones have a lot of really pretty colors and they're beautiful, but there's some Amazon listings for a couple older ones that are the 4-quart, and it makes it a little bit more affordable. So I'm starting with 3/4 cup of warm water. This is just tap water that has come from, we have well water here in Tennessee, so we have really good water out of just the tap. But it's 3/4 cup of that, and I'll just turn it on and let it get kind of warm for a minute. I'll leave it on for 30 seconds to a minute, let it warm up. Then I'm adding 5 tablespoons of meringue powder. You can get meringue powder in the baking aisle at Walmart, at like the big box stores, Hobby Lobby, where you would typically get baking things. I order mine either from Amazon or Walmart, and it's always done really, really well. Now, I adapted this recipe from a recipe that Casey Taccard shared. I think I'm saying that right. Casey, correct me if I'm wrong. But I adapted this recipe from a recipe that she shared on her stories years ago. Her Instagram is Sweet Silhouettes. She sells beautiful, beautiful 3D printed sugar cookie cutters, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So if you're in the market for some cutters, go check her out. That's where the basis of this recipe came from. Now, I'm going to turn my mixer on low now that I've got my water and my meringue powder in there, and just let it fluff a little bit. You want it to come together and form bubbles, but you don't want it to get too bubbly. Now that that's kind of mixed in and incorporated, I'm gonna add in my powdered sugar. I used to sift my powdered sugar before I put it into my icing recipe, but I don't do that anymore. My KitchenAid takes care of the lumps and bumps for me, and I don't have to worry about it. So I just start this out on low to start getting it incorporated. Then I'll turn it up on high and I'll let it mix for 3 to 4 minutes until it gets light and fluffy and beautiful. Now, once you've gotten your icing to this stage, after it's mixed in the mixer on high speed for about 2 to 3 minutes, just whenever it reaches this point where it's got stiff peaks or when you pull it out of the mixer, it stands up like this. When you get to that point, that's when you're ready to mix your icing to the various consistencies. Now, I stop here, but many of you have asked me about adding additions or flavorings at this point. I put enough vanilla in my sugar cookies that I feel like if I add vanilla to my icing, it can be a bit overpowering. So what I do is I just leave it like this, and then I mix it to my consistency to make my cookies. But if you'd like to add flavoring, this is the point where you do it. Just add it in until it's all consistent. Then if you'd like to add something like glycerin, I know some people add like vegetable glycerin or corn syrup to make theirs a little bit more shiny. You could do that at this point. I personally have never used those because I like the more matte look that mine get. Now on my other video, the one about royal icing with meringue powder, which is the exact same recipe, exact same process. I'm just making a more updated one with a new title to help you find this one. Many people ask me if they live in a really humid climate, how it's going to affect their royal icing. And what I've found living in the southern United States, right on the Tennessee-Alabama line, where it does get fairly humid in the summers, is it can affect the consistency and the dry time. So I make the recipe as normal, but I adjust my consistency measurements. So I have a free class called Consistency Confidence that walks you through a very, very, very in-depth explanation of how to achieve royal icing consistency. Today in this video, I'm going to walk you through a much more simplified version, a much more concise version of how to get this icing to the various consistencies for decorating sugar cookies. Now, for my purposes today, I'm making cookies, Ninja Turtle cookies, for my nephew's birthday party. And I'm down to 2 piping bags because I forgot to order more. So I'm going to be making a dipping consistency so that I can dip the surface of my cookies and then have them laid out like this rather than popping and flooding. I'm also going to make a flooding consistency for some of the other cookies, and I'm going to make what I call a toothpaste consistency. Obviously, that's about the consistency of toothpaste, and it's for popping more of the decorative type stuff that you want to stay more in the shape of the piping tip that you're using. So those are the consistencies I'll be using today, and I'll take you with me and show you what they look like. Now, to mix my icing to the various consistencies, I'm going to be using a bowl, a flat spatula, and again, just some regular tap water. The flat spatula is important because it helps prevent air bubbles in your icing. So I'll show you exactly how to do that in just a minute, and we're going to start with the dipping consistency. Now, in my Consistency Confidence class, I teach you the SG scoop method. This is my method for using a 2-ounce ice cream scoop to help you get closer to the consistency you're looking for without all the guesswork. because when I first started cookie decorating, there was a whole lot of just mix it until it looks like this. Mix it until you can pull it up on a spoon and it takes this many seconds to reincorporate. And those are all great ways to measure your icing's consistency, but getting to that point was a lot of trial and error. So I developed this method with a 2-ounce ice cream scoop to help me get just a little closer to that consistency instead of having to guess so much. So I'm gonna need quite a bit of the dipping consistency that I'm gonna use today. That's just a little looser than what I would call my 20-second consistency. And when I say 20-second, that means if you take some up on the spoon and you drop it back into the bowl, you count how many seconds it takes to reincorporate into the rest of the icing and kind of flow back together. And that's the number of seconds your royal icing is considered. So I'm gonna start with about 4 scoops of this plain white icing. And when I am not using this bowl, I'm gonna cover it with a lid for the KitchenAid mixer bowl or a damp tea towel. Whatever it is that you've got on hand, you wanna make sure that this icing is covered in the meantime so that it's not developing a crust while you're mixing the rest of your icing. Once it's in a piping bag, that's fine, but you wanna make sure that it's inside a piping bag or covered with a lid at all times so that it's not developing that crust. Because if it develops a crust while it's in the bowl, that's gonna create chunks inside your piping bag that will make it much more difficult to pipe. I'm grabbing my lid for my KitchenAid bowl, and that is gonna protect the rest of my icing from getting all crusty and dusty while I'm working on this. Now, I typically say a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of water per 2-ounce scoop of icing for my recipe. So I'm gonna count 4 of these. But I know I want my icing to be a little bit thinner than I typically would go for that 20-second. So I'm gonna add 5 total. And this is gonna give me quite a bit of icing that I can use to dip the cookies that I'm gonna color white. I had to get very strategic with how I was gonna decorate these cookies. I'm using all the methods at my disposal because of the fact that I'm out of piping bags, out of my tipless piping bags. So stay tuned for the Ninja Turtle cookie video. That one's gonna be interesting. There will be a lot of trial and error going on. Okay, I think I actually told y'all wrong. I think it's 2 teaspoons, yeah. I'm gonna take 2 teaspoons of water per scoop, plus a little extra to get that 20-second consistency. Make sure to scrape down the sides really well. Now you can see that the icing reincorporates really quickly. I'm going to show you what the process of dipping one of these cookies will actually look like. So I'll hold the cookie by its sides, dip it into the surface of the icing, give it a little wiggle coming up. A little bit more wiggle. Flip it, turn it, set it down. It's okay, baby. It's all right. Okay, then I use my scribe tool here, which is what we use to spread the icing out, just to break up any air bubbles that may have come up. I usually calculate about 3 3-inch cookies to a scoop, and I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 of the cookies that I'm going to be icing with the green, plus another cookie that I'm going to add some green detail to. So I'm going to do 4 scoops of icing before I mix to the consistency I want. I'm going to use some gel food coloring to get the green that I'm looking for. Now I'm using Satin Eyes today. I also love Americolor. I've got all those linked in my Amazon storefront or in the description below as well. But what you're looking for is a gel color. I have heard of people using powder as well. What you want to avoid is the liquid food coloring from the grocery store, that it's just a diluted version of this gel food coloring, because that can affect the consistency of your icing. And I like to add my food coloring prior to mixing my icing to the right consistency. And I just add food coloring, water, and all in one hit. I just add food coloring, water, and all into one bowl. And I'm doing 2 teaspoons per 2-ounce scoop of icing. So that's 4 scoops of icing. So that would be 2, 4, 6, 8 teaspoons of water. And I'm gonna give that a stir. And it looks pretty clumpy and messy when you first get started. It might make you a little nervous when you first do it, because it doesn't look like it's gonna turn out when you first start mixing it, but be patient. Keep going in a back and forth kind of motion to incorporate the water, the food coloring, and the icing together. And try to avoid whipping in any air bubbles, because air bubbles will show up in your piping bag and in the surface of the icing that you're making. Now, when I take up a little bit of the icing and I drop it back down into the bowl, you can tell that this is a lot thicker than that dip consistency, and I have to really shake it to get it to go back down into the rest of the icing. And if I were to take time to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, how long it takes for it to reincorporate, that would tell me how many seconds this is. And I'm guesstimating that this is around a 20-second icing. So I'm gonna take this, put it into my tipless piping bag so that it's ready to make cookies. Tipless piping bags are just a special type of piping bag that allows you to not have to use a metal tip. They're very handy for sugar cookie decorating. You can secure the top with a rubber band, with a chip clip, whatever it is that you have available to you. I also have a little sealing machine. It's actually used for butchers and people who do newspaper delivery. And they have these little plastic tabs that you can add to the top. Today, I'm just gonna tie this one. Woo. We're gonna have plenty of Ninja Turtle green. And next we're gonna make a black toothpaste consistency. Now for the toothpaste consistency, I'm just leaving the green in the bowl because the next color that I'm doing is black. I like to mix lightest to darkest to avoid having so many dishes to do. And I'm just gonna do around 2 scoops of this. And I'm gonna add some black gel food coloring. I'm adding quite a bit here. And I'm gonna mix it and see what consistency I have after it's all mixed in, since I'm using so much gel. Then I'm gonna take a look. Now this is still at a stiff peak consistency, so I want just a bit more flow. I'm gonna start with a teaspoon of water. This is a good consistency for details. I'm gonna be making some little swords and nunchucks and ninja stars to go on these cookies. And this is gonna be a good consistency to get a smooth top on that. You can see that's starting to be a soft peak, but it won't be, but it'll still not flow all over the cookie. We want it to kind of maintain the shape that we pop out. So now we've got our kind of toothpaste looking black icing. It's not nearly as thick as it was when it came out of the bowl. I've added about 2 teaspoons to 2 scoops, 2-ounce ice cream scoops of the icing straight out of the mixer. And that's what I've got. So now I'm gonna put that into a piping bag as well, and I'm gonna get started decorating. Yay! Oh. If you'd like to download my royal icing recipe or sugar cookie icing recipe, you can do that in the description below. I have my cookie confidence guide that will give you the rundown of everything you need to know to make beautifully decorated sugar cookies. I hope to see you in my next video. I'll show you exactly how these Ninja Turtle cookies come together. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Click that like button if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. In the meantime, be sure to head to SarahGraceCookieCo.com for more cookie decorating resources, inspiration, and encouragement.